Okay, so come close to me where you can see, because what I got to show you in the book, I use these same graphics, but yeah, thanks. But I'm kind of focused on spots, certain spots when I'm showing them to you. So I want to talk about what this topography would have looked like, and I'll point out some stuff. What it would have looked like before there was any city here. Okay. So this is the area, this is the region, as the Bible calls it, of Moriah. Okay, there's two ridges. One is the watershed ridge, and on the other side, the Mount of Olives. So I'm pointing them with my two fingers on here. This is the Mount of Olives ridge that you see coming down here. And then the watershed ridge, it's kind of blocked by the western hill, but it's over on the other side of the western hill. There's two hills. There's two hills that are divided by three valleys. Okay, the western hill, and the one we're standing on is the eastern hill. You understand?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the eastern hill. Now the three valleys. This valley here is the Kidron Valley. It makes up the eastern border of the region of Moriah. This is the Kidron Valley coming right down through here. Okay. Then the Hinnom Valley, which I'm pointing to here, makes up both the western and the southern borders of the region of Moriah. Okay, because it swings around. So it's over on the other side, making up the border, and it swings around like that, and then it comes down in that deepest hole and joins the Kidron. See it? Okay. Then coming close, because there's going to be other groups that come in. Then there's this one, the Central Valley. This is the one that's the hardest to see today, because they filled it in a major way to build the houses over the top of it today. But it's coming just on the other side of the Temple Mount, and it's coming down through this area. It makes that western edge of the city of David. Okay? So two hills, eastern and western, divided by three valleys, Hinnom, Ben Hinnom, Central, and Kidron. Okay, now, the eastern hill has an upper part, which is up there. And you can't see the Dome of the Rock, but that peak that you see right there, that rocky peak, is where the Dome of the Rock, that's the rock that the Dome of the Rock is named after. Okay, that's Mount Moriah specifically. And then it's got a lower section, which is right here. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to show you the first city. When the first city, walled city, came in, looked like that. Salem, and then the city of David. Okay, time of Abraham all the way up to the time of David. Now why, in all this topography, would you build your city down on this kind of lame lower part of the eastern hill? Water. Now you see in the city that the water source is not inside the city proper. Okay, now I'm going to show you where it is in real life. The Gihon Spring. You see this house down here with the red roof? It's underneath that house. You see, if you go to the right, you see that plastic over there, that's where they've been digging down under there. We're going to be walking under there, and that's in the area where we're going to get into Hezekiah's tunnel, and we're going to see the Canaanite pool and all this kind of stuff. So that's where the water source is. Now the problem is, take that red roof, can you build a city wall around that? Where would you have to go to build a city wall around that? The wall would have to go into the valley floor. You see that?
Right.
What would happen when it rains real hard, and I've seen this thing become a river, would wash your wall out all the time. That's the weakness. Okay. Now look down. Do you see this green patch where I'm pointing down here? Everyone? And then do you see the wall line right up against that green patch?
Right.
That's the wall line that was the wall line from the time of Abraham all the way up to the 586 destruction, and it's coming up through here. You can see where it's been dug down here. Do you see how Gihon Spring, that red roof, is on the outside of the wall line? Okay, now people talk and explain this water system so much, it gets so complicated, and now people are like, oh my gosh, it's simple. just simplify it. If you understand it in its simple terms, then you can understand more complexity. The water source is on the outside of the city wall, and the people need the water on the inside of the city wall.
Right.
Therefore, they're going to dig a tunnel underneath the ground, like we've walked through before, under the city wall in this case, to the water, so that they can go from the city down to the water and back up into the city without ever leaving the city. Well, technically, because they're underground. Okay? Then you see David's palace there at the top of the city. We're going to go down to that in a little while. He's in that palace. It's in his heart to build the temple, but it's his son that builds the temple. So this is Solomon's city, still on the eastern hill. Right? Okay? Now, something's going to happen. Look at what happens to the city between these two periods. That's Hezekiah's city down there, and that's Solomon's city. What happened?
Refugees.
Refugees. Do you see that the western hill is now occupied for the first time? Now that's where the dig that we've been doing in Jerusalem is located just up there on the western hill, and so that's where you got your refugee camp. Okay? Then this is the city that's destroyed by the Babylonians. And then it's rebuilt in the Persian period. Basically, the only thing this is how it's rebuilt in the Persian period. When Nehemiah rebuilds the city walls, we're only talking about this city that's being rebuilt. Then the Hasmonean period, when Jews win their independence, they rebuild the walls basically along the line of the western wall again, and it returns to this. Okay, understood? Then this is the city of Herod the Great. Still a Jewish city. I want you to see that the two main things in this city, let me put them. One is his palace, which is up on the western hill, on the top of the western hill, and then the other one is the Temple Mount. In fact, we have two aqueducts coming all the way in from the Hebron area, all the way through Bethlehem. And the two major aqueducts, one goes to the temple, and the other one goes to Herod the Great's palace. Okay. This is the city of Jesus's day. This is the city that is destroyed, basically the city that is destroyed by the Romans in 70 AD. Then the rubble from 70 AD, then Hadrian comes along and builds Aelia Capitolina that we were just walking along the pattern of. And you see where he's got his temple, and he's also got a shrine with two statues up on top of the Temple Mount. I know it's small, it's just to give you an idea of where the city went and the other things. Then that was converted into Byzantine Jerusalem, where the pagan temples were destroyed and made into churches. And then we've got the Islamic areas.
Website, Joel.
I have them in my book.
I don't have the book.
I'll give you a book. Okay. Now, one thing I want to point out here, let me see, which one do I want to use? I will use this one. Because when we're talking about Jeremiah and Isaiah and everything, then we're talking about this city. Okay, now, this city, we're going to be covering this today. This is, the western hill is higher than the eastern hill, but this is the holy site for the city, right? And it's right up there. You can't quite see beyond Al-Aqsa Mosque where the temple stood, but it stood right up there at the high place. The lowest place in Jerusalem is right here where I'm pointing. Okay, so that's it. See that deep hole down there? You see the contrast between that deep hole and where the temple stood?
Yeah.
Okay, now think about this. Down in that deep hole, as we're going to cover, that's where Israel's king sinned the most, and we're going to cover that today. That's where Judas hung himself. Okay, where all that stuff happened is the lowest place. Where David's palace was higher where the temple where Yahweh dwelt was higher. The place where Jesus was crucified, buried, and rose from the dead was higher. The place where Pentecost was poured out was higher. We're going to cover that. And the place where Jesus ascended was the highest. Okay. Now, I don't think that's coincidence. And so that's just a basic geography lesson. We're going to be talking about, we're going to walk from heaven to hell. And when I say hell, that is the valley of Ben Hinnom, Gehenna, it's called in Aramaic, and it's the name that we derive the name hell from. Okay, so that represents hell. Where Yahweh dwells at this period represents heaven. And so we're going to be talking about events that happen here and there. And then, of course, as we go into New Testament Jerusalem, we'll be talking about those most significant events that these are foreshadowing.